Hey there, welcome. Today I want to talk about patterns versus people. And this is something I realized many years ago via psychedelic experiences and psychotropic substances, is that it's more accurate to perceive reality as patterns, as continuous, ever-changing, ever-present, endless amounts of patterns, rather than subjugating everybody into these persons, into these identities, these narratives of a being that isn't totally accurate. It's really just cherry picking a subset of data, a subset of memories and experiences, and a small amount of associations, usually in relation to like, this person is like this person, or this person is like this group of people. We do this a lot with identity creation and attachment, which creates our person and creates what we call our self, but it's not accurate, it's not true. And it's more accurate and that there's just a bunch of patterns, infinite patterns actually. And the reason I want to talk about this is because in spirituality, there's a lot of talk about compassion, about kindness, about love, about respect, about treating others the way you would want to be treated, or treating others in a way that doesn't cause them suffering because we wouldn't want suffering in our own experience. And there's beauty to this, and there's a lot of truth to this, especially since we are literally all one infinite entity together. We're just not aware of it most of the time, and we're not, accessing our potential enough to really understand that. But there are issues when we kind of try to love everyone, when we try to have compassion for everyone and empathy for everyone, while being in this limited state, while being in this constant influx and output of narratives and stories and ideas about personhood and identity. Things that happen are things like seeing someone as wholly good, or even seeing someone as wholly bad because they did things that we react to. They did things we value, or they did things we devalue. Other things that can happen are blanket kind of responses to people. So we have maybe an idea about what love means, a concept, an association network of like, this is what kindness is, this is what compassion is, we do these things. But then sometimes those things don't work. And there's a few reasons that those things don't work. And one of the reasons is just like, there's not really any universal way to treat a person, a being, an entity, an existing experience, or there's not one single way or even a dozen ways to treat people that'll work in every circumstance. And that's easy to understand, I think. Like, there's no universal treatment that will suffice under every circumstance all the time. But a big part is that we see people, as persons, as this illusory bubble that's almost separate from other bubbles and is contained within itself, but it doesn't include the whole story. It doesn't include everything that a person is. And everything that a person is going to be all the memories, all the experiences, all the physiology, all the subconscious experiences and happenings, all the relations that we might not think about. There's so many things about even myself or my partner or a friend or a coworker that I'm never gonna know, but they are integrally part of who we are as an experience or as an existence. But when we think of our identity, when we think of our personness, there's so much we leave out. So much we leave out that we could just even talk about, that we could be like, oh yeah, we don't really include those memories, we don't include those behaviors in our identity, we don't include, that history. Our idea of ourselves is highly limited and really cherry picks. And that's kind of what a person is. We do it for our own self, and we do this confining nature to other people. And this creates a manifestation of limitation. We limit ourselves and we limit others with our concepts and our narratives, our stories, our ideas. Just that alone isn't nice overall. It's not the best way to go about things. But there's something beyond that, and that is the true person, the true self is Brahman. Atman is Brahman, the true experiencer, all of us existing here right now. We are all completely interconnected, not separate in any fashion. There's no thing we can point at that isn't the infinite, almighty, amazing existence, Brahman, Param Brahman. But things happen. Stuff is here, there's things. This is obvious, whether we want to separate them into categories and labels and whatever, it doesn't matter. It's evident stuff is here. Things are happening, We don't really need accurate words at this moment. Just an awareness that, yes, it's all Brahman, but there's also something, and there's contrast, like grabbing the air is obviously different than grabbing my arm. It's obvious. There's no argument to be made against this apparent distinctions. It's basically just infinity embellished. It's just infinity doing its thing. Yes, it's all one infinite thing, but because it's infinite, multiplicity and plurality and variety are boundless and measureless. There's no end. And this is where seeing things as patterns can make a lot more sense and can be a lot better for everybody on a practical level, on a mental level, and on a spiritual level. So when we come to love people, when we come to treat people a certain way and think about them a certain way, whether it's really positive and kind or even, judgmental and abrasive, this gradient of, causing suffering to people versus giving them, beauty and love and generosity and care. When we see others and ourselves as a person, this bubble of a being, we are prone to not treat things appropriately, because we're all in this infinite fractal together. We all don't want suffering, yet we all feed on suffering. We are all contributing to the suffering of other beings accidentally and ignorantly, through our purchases, through our thoughts, through our behaviors, through our reactions, and to ourself and our own body and all our cells and organs. There's so many things we do that cause suffering and disease and decay and destruction unnecessarily and unwantedly to this world, to the experiencers of this reality. And these are not patterns to support. They're not patterns to endorse. They're not patterns to promote or perpetuate. We require patience and presence to perceive which patterns are not appropriate for the betterment of the experience, for the betterment of existence, for the truth of existence to be understood, and lived, and for that love and that bliss of God, of infinity, to be established in our flow, which is the point of all of this. We're all just here to love. But when we love a limited idea of a person, there's a lot of moments where we're going to actually give them energy and positive reinforcement to continue vices, to continue bad habits. And it doesn't involve proper discernment and discrimination. And it's the same when we kind of see ourselves or other people as bad if they did something we thought was bad. But that's not how it is. Patterns have consequences. It is more accurate to discern which patterns do that, which patterns cause suffering, why, when, under what circumstance, and to cut those out and to transform those patterns, and to see which patterns cause love and expansion of consciousness and realization and remembrance of our infinite nature, and to perpetuate those. But to label or treat someone in a negative way because they've done negative things isn't the way. And to treat someone wholly positively, in almost in a generic sense, a dogmatic, rigorous way of just treating people the same just because that's what we think we need to do, it also doesn't get us to the truth. And I realized this long ago, and there's a certain transcendence of ideologies and notions that happen if we can detract from seeing people as limited persons, limited identities, and actually just see everything as a interconnected flow of patterns that is just infinity happening, and to love all the patterns. When we love all the patterns, it doesn't mean we treat them all the same, because we're going to also love this intuitive, insightful, almost instinctive wisdom that will come to us. So to love a pattern that must transform or change or dissipate, it is to realize that that needs to happen. So we're also loving the pattern of realization, of insight and wisdom. And then we love even the challenge to make it happen. Whatever emotions and resistances and defense mechanisms arise, we love those happenings, and we love the overcoming of those happenings. If somebody is doing something wrong, questionable, if they're spiraling in untruth, in illusion, and we can see it and we know it, we love that we see it, and we love that this is an opportunity to change. And then we love managing whatever tension or conflict arises if we deliver that to the experiencer, the other person, to help the patterns all coalesce into love, true happiness, truth. It's not easy because we're so indoctrinated to think in terms of personhood and identity and small separate selves, but it's a really good way to begin edging and leaning into consistent non-dual realizations that eventually sustain themselves longer and longer until we have no choice but to just be. And it's really good for our own transformation. It's really good for our own resistances. We're gonna run into a lot of resistances in ourself, attachments and habits and addictions and negative patterns that occur spontaneously or reactively to the world. And if we can transcend being a person, a self, and just love all the patterns occurring, what we're going to find is the patterns that trust and live within the infinite rather than trying to attach to illusory limits are actually going to be the ones that survive. When we love both the finite suffering creating patterns, but also the wisdom, insight of infinity itself, the bulb, the rock, the pebble, the whatever of the suffering creating patterns, the limited, the false, they'll dissipate, they'll evaporate, they'll crumble, they'll blossom. The wisdom, the insight, the infinite, you can't do anything to it. It's untarnished, it's unfettered. It has no capacity to be unclean or impure, actually. And it's always present, and it's always more powerful than any limited framework or experience or thought. And so when we love the patterns that occur and we stay present and patient, it is like the natural flow that the small will change and that large, that boundless, will remain ever boundless. But if we keep loving people as just these limited persons, these limited bubbles, we're just going to be prone to thinking of ourselves in a limited way, going to be prone to forgetting the infinitude, going to be prone to promoting negativity, going to be prone to almost not listening to the wisdom because we're afraid of harming or shaking our idea of the person. Because we're gonna suffer, we're gonna experience our karma, we're gonna experience change and the growth pains of transformation and remembrance in various ways, in unpredictable ways, in beautiful, pleasurable ways also. But we can't just delude ourselves into thinking that every idea of person that we have is perfect already and we just need to love them as they are, when what they truly are is God and infinity. And to love the wisdom that interconnects all souls means we're going to have to face our limitations together, and we're going to have to realize the patterns that are that. In the end, this is just one of the infinite methods to transcend confined concepts and to embrace the love of God. In the end, patterns are also not limited. They aren't these strings of things that are limited to our perception of them or our beliefs about them. They are wholly interconnected as one infinite being, and so are we. But I do find that loving the patterns also even helps with loneliness. Just we don't need to be around an idea of a person. Just the fact that patterns exist is beautiful, that existence exists. And it helps us improve. It helps us discern what is needed. Because sometimes it isn't the quantity of persons in pleasure and not in pain, but it's of the presence of patterns that are actively aware of perfection and infinity and the wisdom of the Great One. Sometimes that's more important, if not always. And the more we make those patterns present, the easier it's going to be for experiencers, beings that are experiencing this infinite self, it'll be easier for them to go through their stuff and realize that wisdom. But the more we sustain limited frameworks of identity and of small illusory reality, the more harm we do to others. And I don't think any of us really want that. So that's all for right now. Thank you so much for watching. Om Sai Ram.